What is good, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video, and in this one I'm going to be talking about the one and only Tesla stock and what you should be looking out for the future. I'm also going to do some in-depth technical analysis and give you guys my price prediction for tomorrow based off the charts are showing and based off the data is suggesting. I'm also going to break down what's going on with the overall market and how this may affect Tesla, some very important headlines coming out for the next upcoming days, and also this big piece of news involving Tesla's recall. I'm going to talk about whether or not this is actually the truth, what context you need to know about this, and how this may affect Tesla going forward as well. Now, before I break anything down, before I get into any more details, I do have to mention a couple of things before starting. Firstly, I'm not a financial planner, so take none of this as financial advice whatsoever. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button if you want to see more videos like this. It not only benefits me, it benefits the entire Tesla community as a whole. And the last things, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull, the link down below, and deposit any amount of money into the account, you're guaranteed up to 12 free stocks, each worth up to $2,000. And the best part is any could be a free Tesla share. It's a limited time offer. The offer ends in 1 week. Check it out before they run out. With that out of the way, let's get on with the video. Looking at Tesla, this thing was down about 1.63% for the day. And overall, guys, the trend is not looking the best. Now, there is still some hope that Tesla could bounce off this key demand zone because historically, we do see a lot of these buyers really step in right around here. And also, guys, when I was looking at the chart and the live options data, there were lots and lots of those buyers down here. People were buying those calls for December. People were loaded the boat into these calls and long options and shares in this like 176 to 180 zone. It looks like they want this thing to pump up a little bit more. However, I can't guarantee that because we know the market could be very capricious. Now, there is a good chance that we could actually look at the probabilities and talk about what will most likely happen anyways. So for Tesla, one thing worth noting is the fact that we do have a tendency of actually moving with the market, except Tesla has been especially weak, especially since that whole Twitter situation and Elon Musk selling more shares and all those things that are going on. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that Tesla has to crash in a straight line. That tends to not actually always happen that way. That's why there is still hope Tesla could get a nice bounce. Now, looking at the way everything is looking, most analysts are still very bullish on Tesla, and Mondays are historically green days 53% of the time, so there is a good chance Tesla could get a nice bounce. Novembers are actually green 61.54% of the time for Tesla, so there is a good chance we should see a nice continuation for this month, at least for the overall market. And then looking at the short interest, we did see this actually downtrending for the most part, but this did start to go up a bit as more shorts began to pile into Tesla. So that is worth noting. However, guys, there are other key context details you need to know. So if you are bullish on Tesla and for the market, you have to remember that there are some things that actually back up your claim, such as the fact that the put to call ratio, is very high. We tend to see a Thanksgiving rally in the markets, not to mention that there could be a bull flag continuation. But if you are very bearish, there are all these different possibilities I want to just talk about. So when it comes to a bull flag, we saw the market essentially do this. It was actually downtrending for some time, got a nice bounce out of it, and we actually saw a bull flag like pattern that continued on SPY. However, the real question now is not whether or not this was a bull flag, but the question is, could we see a bullish continuation from here? And historically, the answer would be most likely because, look, when we approach Thanksgiving, the market tends to actually pump historically the large majority of the time. Does that mean we always have to do that? No, but it is very likely thanks to that. Another thing that's worth noting is the fact that the puts to call ratio is crazy for Friday. And remember, guys, this is going to be a very short week because Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, the market's going to be open for the full days. But for Thursday, which is Thanksgiving, the market is closed. And for Friday, the market's only going to be open for a couple of hours. So it's really important to note that. And despite that, we have a 2.39 puts to call ratio, which means everyone's loaded the boats on puts, at least the majority of people. They're betting the market's going to come down pretty hard. And when this tends to happen, when so many people are on the put side, the market tends to do the opposite. So that would be a more bullish kind of like thesis. And we do have some evidence to back up that claim. But if you are bearish, guys, it's important to note the fact that you could look at Wyckoff and talk about how this actually compares with SPY, and we could see us entering this distribution phase where we are going to get ready to start coming down relatively soon. However, there's no guarantee about the timing. It could take a little bit longer for us to actually start coming down. That's also because of Thanksgiving. But nonetheless, guys, it is still very possible for the market to come down, because you could also argue that there's this like downtrend that's being respected. Unless we see a bullish continuation, then that thesis can actually be mitigated. But overall, like I said, I mean, I hate to say this, but the market could go either way. But like I mentioned, because of Thanksgiving, because of the put to call ratio, I'm a little bit more bullish for this market, at least for the short term. And I think it's very likely we could see a nice continuation. One issue with that, though, is the volume on SPY is continuing to slow down. For the past 30 days, the average volume is about 100 million. And for the past week, it was only like 70 million or so. This is a sign that there is some decline overall, but historically, there have been many moments where SPY actually rallied off low volume. So, like I said, we have to watch for how this thing actually moves. If this thing gets a nice push, we break past 397, we have some room to go to about 400. That's very possible for us to retest it. And if we break above 400, there's a good chance we either get rejected off like 402 to 403, or we pump all the way up to about 407 to go for the gap fill. I mentioned this previously, guys. I just wanted to reiterate this because if we do see the market pump up more thanks to Thanksgiving, it's very possible for Tesla to actually see a bit of a relief rally, maybe a small one, because Tesla was dropping very hard over the last couple of days, and that's completely normal. However, the other possibility would be a more bearish market. If SPY comes down, we have to watch this demand zone 390, break below that, and that's not going to be good for Tesla. So I mentioned most of this yesterday, but I want to talk about how this all could affect Tesla. One thing that's worth noting for the week is we don't have anything too big actually coming out for tomorrow. I think we have some Fed speakers, but nothing else. However, we're going to see one of the Fed presidents actually talking a little bit later, excuse me, about inflation, and that could also be. I wouldn't say it's going to be too concerning. We've actually heard the Fed for quite a bit of time, but I do believe the market could kind of lag as the day goes on, thanks to these Fed speakers. So what I think is going to happen is we should get a nice push into open, but we may slow down as the day goes on. Now, for Tuesday, there's not much going on, but for Wednesday, we have a lot of things coming out. We have Jerome Powell speaking at the Brookings Institution. We also have the FOMC minutes. We have other very big catalysts. And then the market's going to be closed for Thanksgiving on Thursday. And then for Friday, there's not really any big dates, but it is worth noting that it's going to be a very short day and we could see some profit taking for then. So for this week, what I think is likely to happen is we're going to see a lot of activity on Monday and Tuesday going into the Fed meeting. It's not like a FOMC meeting, but just the time that Jerome Powell starts speaking. And when he talks, the whole market is going to shake like crazy for Wednesday. So be very prepared for this. Now, when it comes to Tesla, the last thing I'm going to talk about before I talk about the charts is this recall. It's not an actual recall, guys, because a recall has completely different context for other companies, right? 321,000 Tesla cars, they do have some issues when it comes to the rear lights. Not to mention, I think airbag issues they were existent for other cars as well. However, for them to fix it, all they have to do is another like software update. That's all it is, guys. I mean, I don't consider this like such a crazy thing to go crazy over. This is just an over the air update to actually correct the issue. So it's not really a typical recall. You need that context. Is it an issue? I mean, I guess you could say that, but I consider this pretty minor, and I do believe they are going to fix this very quickly. So I don't consider it that big of a deal. But the problem is, one problem I'm seeing is this FUD that came out could actually negatively affect the stock. So for tomorrow, I wouldn't be surprised if Tesla trades a little bit sideways for some time, but maybe we could get a nice push. That's what I'm really hoping for. We have to see Tesla push up and retest this 185 level, get a nice break above it for there to be hope for the bulls. Now, if Tesla trades tomorrow, and we see another bearish continuation. And Tesla breaks below 180, we start hanging out around here, and then we end up dropping a little bit lower and we close below 180. It's going to be a very bearish signal, guys. And Tesla's likely going to come all the way down to retest 168. And I don't think the support is very strong around there. The more stronger demand zone, more buyers will start coming around that 150 to 155 level. All right, so Tesla could come just tumbling all the way down to 150 pretty fast if we break below this zone. And it can really just take a week or two for it to come all the way down there. It can crash very hard. So that's why we have to bounce off this zone. I'm really hoping we see that. Now, if you are a bull in this market, it's worth noting that Tesla formed a pretty decent looking double bottom like formation. We got a nice bounce the last time we actually hit this 180 zone. We pushed all the way up to about 200. Then we came all the way back down. So I'm hoping for another nice bounce around here for some more buyers to step in because of Monday. Not to mention the fact that the market does have a tendency of pushing into Thanksgiving. So my prediction for Tesla would be, look, you have to know the context, right? If this thing does end up breaking down, all right, be prepared, guys. Watch that 180 level, break below that, and watch like 177 ish around there. We have to hold this zone. If it breaks below it, all right, I'm prepared for anything just in case. However, like I said, if you consider the fact that a lot of buyers did actually come on Friday, they actually fought for this zone. We ended up actually closing above 180. So there is hope that we could see a nice bounce. And I think that there's maybe a 55 to 60% chance that is what ends up happening. So I'm predicting that maybe into open, Tesla could see a nice bounce and a retest of this 185 zone. And then what I'm hoping for is for Tesla and the market to hold up for the majority of this week. And I'm starting to think this way because, like I mentioned, the put to call ratio is too high, and the majority of those market makers do not want to pay out all those options. So they're incentivized. If you are a market maker, if you're this big institution, right, you are incentivized to keep the market afloat, not cause it to crash yet. We could actually see the market start to come down, I would say, the week after because the put to call ratio is very low. It's pretty low for the week after, except for Friday. So it is more likely for them to want to pay out some of these options, at least for the later weeks. So I wouldn't be surprised if the week after this coming week, the market does start to show more weakness. But until then, as we approach Thanksgiving, it's very possible for us to hold up. So, like I mentioned, guys, I'm hoping for Tesla to get a nice push to about this 185 level, maybe hang out between 185 to 180 temporarily. And maybe, just maybe, if the market is continuing to push and some shorts start to cover, Tesla could actually push all the way up to this 190 level. Just maybe. I mean, I don't want to promise anything, but I'm hoping we see buyers step in. Now, like I mentioned, that is what I think is most likely going to happen. But if we break out of this zone, it's just not going to be pretty. One other thing I'm actually watching would be the QQQ or the NASDAQ because of the fact that this thing is starting to look like it entered a reaccumulation right over here. And we do have some potential to start pushing up on this as well. It's about this 186 level. And if we break past that, we could hit not 186, I meant 286. We could break past 286, then hit 287.9, then break past that. I mean, we do have some space for this gap fill to about this 288 level. I'm not really promising it, but it is very possible for us to see that if the market gets a nice push thanks to Thanksgiving. And historically, like I mentioned, that is what tends to happen. On the dollar index, if you notice this thing is actually starting to trade in a very different manner. It was oversold. It came down pretty hard. You could argue it wants to balance a bit, but it's not showing enough strength to continue pushing up very hard. So if this thing does end up coming down, if that is the case, the market is likely going to see some more room to push up. But if this starts pushing up even harder, it's not going to be the best. And as of right now, it's trading kind of sideways. So we have to wait and see how it goes. I am hoping it actually starts to come down just a little bit so we have a little bit more room to push up from here. So anyways, guys, that's basically what I have for this video. Like I mentioned on Tesla and the markets, both a bullish and bearish possibility are possible, but I am more inclined into thinking that Tesla's going to get a nice push back to this 185 level. I'm really hoping Tesla actually does that. So that's what I have for this one, guys. Please be ready for this week. We have some major catalysts coming out, not to mention Jerome Powell speaking later on. Be ready, remain calm, cool, and collected, and I will definitely see you guys in the next one. Tesla to the moon because the long-term future is still incredibly bright. Peace out.